Hey guys, we're back for part 2 with Alveraz, and we had so much fun last week. We talked and talked and talked, so we are going to continue that conversation right now.
I'm always fascinated by two creatives that find each other
And it
fall
works?
in love, and it works, and there's this just understanding. Like, you both walked in and you see, oh, creative space. My wife has been in human resources for like 20 years, and she's now in she runs the human resources for a large accounting firm. And creatively, we just couldn't be more different.
Right.
Because creativity, I'm not going to say she's not creative. She's going to watch this. But she doesn't quite get all of this.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's this kind of strange disconnect, which is both good and, well, it's always good, really.
Yeah.
It's just different because our conversations aren't around, I can come home and I can leave acting behind. You know, and I know that I can come home and we can hang out and nothing about the creative world will come up at all for days.
And that's literally like,
and that's okay
sometimes I say, we always work. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we lay in bed at 9 o'clock at night and we're like, so, you know, what do you think I should do for this? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, can you look at this headshot? What do you think? When, you know,
yeah.
Or he's like, can you run lines with me? Hey, can we go out in the studio and
love
record
that
this? I want to
too.
see what it looks like on camera. So it's 9 o'clock at night and we put on sweatpants and go out to the studio and do a tape just so we can see what it looks like on camera.
But now, at any point do either of you decide, can we talk about anything but this business?
I'm the only one that does that. And I think it's because I used to feel guilty because I've never been in a relationship where both of us get excited about it.
Right.
So it was always all you ever do is edit pictures. You're always on that damn computer.
Oh, no.
And Merrick's like, oh, cool, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm going to go do this since you're busy, you know?
That's fantastic.
And so I still have that little bit of like, you know what? Let's just watch something that you're not auditioning for. Like, let's watch something that has nothing to do with.
I have a weird relationship with shows that I've auditioned for. It's a very peculiar thing that I'm still working on and trying to figure out. It's just that if I'm auditioning for a show and I come home, I personally can't watch it.
Oh, really?
I get weird about it. Now, I don't or it takes me some time to get over it. Let me put it to you that way. And again, it goes back to understanding what you can control and can't control. And that's just me being honest that, hey, I'm coming home and I just auditioned for whatever show. I pop on, I see it on, my first thought is, oh, fuck, I didn't book that one.
Well, now Merrick's really good at the whole letting go, and he's taught me, you know, don't ask him, don't ask me, did I get it or have I heard from the? I learned that early on. I never ask.
Yeah, nobody asked
and
me
so
that.
Now,
everybody knows better.
And now a lot of times people say, you know, what did Merrick audition for? And I'm like, I honestly don't remember. I thought you said you were running lines with him. I'm like, yeah, but like.
Yeah, good for you.
I don't remember.
Well, good for you that you figured that out. That's
there was
so
only
critical.
one time that stands out that he wanted to watch it because he was like, man, that was my part. Like, you know what I mean? You know that.
Yes, I
You're
know
like,
what you mean.
that was my part. And we watched it. It was for a judge. I'm not going to say what show, but it was for a judge. And we watched it, and we were both like, first of all, they went older, but they literally did the part the way Merrick auditioned it. It was literally Merrick's audition with another guy doing it.
Wow.
But the guy doing it just, usually you're like, okay, they went with a red-haired white guy, or they went with, you know, whatever. But this one, we just couldn't justify why. It's still, you know, because usually you're like, okay, that's what they decided. But that was the one time that both of us had a minute to let go of it. And I don't think we watched that show anymore.
But hopefully you didn't go too far down that rabbit hole either.
No, it was like that night. But then
we
we I don't think we watched that show, and I think subconsciously we were both like, no, we're not going to turn that show on anymore.
That's great.
But it was never a conversation. But when you said you had problems watching it, that's the only time I think we kind of stopped. We just kind of let it go. We just never really went back to that show because and it wasn't that we were bitter or anything. It's just that was, you know, once in a while it's easy to say let it go, but you know, that's that's a great thing to say, but every once in a while you get really excited and you're like,
Sure.
this is absolutely me. This would be so fun.
Yeah.
And I want to be on this show because I like the show, or the actors that are in it I respect, or
Right.
whatever. And so sometimes, but everybody has to figure out their way of letting go and what that means.
That's fantastic, because it's good to know that we all go through that, and that it's okay. It is. How are you going to manage that?
Yeah.
And that's where I see some actors who cannot manage that, or who run into a wall of anxiety and depression, and they really beat themselves up over it, and they can't move forward. And so the only way out is to for another profession or whatever they want to go. And I see it far too often.
Yeah.
And you can usually find it back on, if you track it back, it goes back to the need for validation, for one. But this intense insecurity, we all want to be loved. We all want validation, not just actors. But there's an intense level of it when you're walking into a room and just bearing your soul to someone and them saying, thank you very much, bye. And then you never hear anything else. It's difficult. It's a difficult hurdle. In some people, it really, really affects them. So how you figure out a way through that is so critical to moving forward.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I'm clearly not an actor, but sometimes there'll be parts for real couples, real mixed couples or something. So, do
you guys go in?
Yeah, Merrick's agent
cool.
submits us, and we've gone in. I want to say 4 or 5 times I've gone in for commercial stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is so not my thing. Like, it's. I mean, I get it. You just like, okay, and then you walk out and you're like, wow. I think we got one call back, and I was like, oh, wow. So then I was excited, because usually I think they were like, he was good, but I don't know who that lady was in there. Maybe we can match him with someone else. But
how did you handle the nerves of just going in?
Well, and that was the thing, because he was like so calm and cool.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you the very first audition we went in, it was a real couple, but they gave us kids. They gave us these really cute kids. They were like 5, 7, and 8 or something like that. And I stood, and all you actors know what I'm talking about. I stood like in the very first position, but I didn't know that. I just walked in, and they're like, stand on the line. So I stood there, and I had asked Merrick, like, what do I need to do? And he's like, just say your name when they ask you to say your name. So he's like, say your name, and I'm like, Peggy Warney. And then this 5-year-old's like,
slate? I love that slate.
And this 5-year-old's like, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm repped by blah, blah, blah. And I go to da-da-da elementary school. And I'm like, oh, you guys suck. And then the next 5-year-old, and then the next, kid, and then Merrick MacArthur. And I was like literally ready to walk out right then. I was like, I've humiliated myself.
Well, they knew they were bringing in real people, whatever that is.
So funny though. That was my first audition, and I was like, had I been at the other end, had Merrick said, you know what, stand over here because they're gonna, or stand in the middle. Had anybody, but no, nobody gives me any warning. I'm standing there and say your name. I'm like a mugshot.
Yeah.
Peggy. Yeah, it was so terrible.
Well, you know what?
So funny.
1, forgive yourself. 2, I know seasoned actors who still can't slate for shit. And they go in, because as Merrick, I go into a lot of these commercials, and they group you with people.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've walked in with actors that you see in commercials all the time and on shows and everything else. And these are seasoned actors, and Mike, 6'1". There's this whole thing, and you're like, oh, dude, you know. Yeah. But what's nice is,
and you work.
Well, it's just interesting to recognize that there's all these little nuance steps within what we do that you can have anxiety about, and that you need to kind of figure out that navigation. And I mean, why did this person 15 years at it can't slate still?
Right.
It's interesting. It's just a very interesting meditation to go back and go, that's okay. What I'm doing is fine. Okay, because we're all making the same kind of goof ups. I've screwed up. I screwed up a slate 2 weeks ago. It was in my head. So these things happen, and for you, really excusable. But for an actor, it's also excusable. And to recognize that, like, we all have these mess ups all the time. I was talking about a friend earlier who has reached that level. She's booking co-stars now, and she's feeling really excited and really good. And again, I had to impress the idea of, what are you going to do when the next big bomb happens? Because we all go through them, no matter what level you're at. And so it's just keeping our minds ready for anything that is just so important. And anyway,
Yeah.
back to that.
So tell me, what's your since we're just chatting here.
Yeah, I know.
And tell me what maybe your not necessarily most embarrassing moment, but most learning moment where you did something and you're like, wow, that did not work. I'm not gonna let that happen again. You know what I mean? Because
I've had a lot of them. Well, this one has a positive ending. And what's funny is this was with somebody I've been talking about. Anyway, so I did an audition once for a home improvement company, one of the large ones. I'm just trying to figure out right now what NDAs I signed and what I didn't. And I remember going into the audition, and the director was in there, and this was callbacks at this point. But there was a time constraint with this casting director and the director, and my job was to go in and do some very physical activities with products. And I think I was building something. And so like I had tools, and I was doing all this miming and these types of things. You saw that look about miming. I don't like the miming stuff. And so he's like, okay, I want you to mime. You're building this, you're doing that. He's like, you know what? We're running low on time, and I'm going to bring in another actor to do the same thing. Now, normally that means you're going to work together on something. We're doing two different things, but that's not what he did. He wants us both to audition for the same part, doing the same things at the same time. So an actor walks in. Now we're talking a whole different bizarre scenario, and this will probably never happen to any of you. But he comes in and he stands next to me, and I look at him and he looks at me, and then we start, and I'm like, wait a minute, we're doing the same shit. I didn't really recognize that. And now he's hammering, and he's hammering confidently. So now I'm like... And it just goes into nightmare land, because now you can't help but see this dude doing the same damn thing you're doing right next to you. And so I just start losing my shit. Now I become the most angry carpenter ever. That's not going to sell a product for this company, because I'm just pissed off, and I'm ready to just throw my shit and just get out of there.
Like a real building project in real life.
Right? Yeah. And so it went really poorly, and I walked out. And the good ending to the story is I booked it. So that's the bizarre part of, I guess that goes back to kind of one of our themes about just being open to anything, and that anything can happen. And if they see something and you're right, you're right. Yeah. And if you're wrong for it. Whatever wrong means. But anyway, so I did book that. But being available and open to the craziest shit ever in auditions is a real thing. It doesn't happen that often, and that was an outlier, absolutely. That's never happened to me ever, nor anybody I know. But having the ability to be open and ready for it is important. I wasn't open and ready for it that day, and I still booked it. So go figure. Yeah,
and it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, this
Makes
is a weird
sense,
business.
Right? Yeah.
So you really have to, I think it's really important to, forgive yourself if you make a mistake, laugh at yourself, and not, because I think I see, we go to a lot of events, and we talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people because I'm a talker, and I love to meet people, and I love to and there's sometimes I meet people that I think, wow, they're really successful, and and I'm excited to meet them, and I talk to them for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, wow, I wished I had just kept that image in my head, because you hear this bitterness in them, and you're like, and not often. I mean, to be honest with you, I think I've met more amazing actors than not amazing actors.
Well,
as far as people.
I was going to ask you, when you're meeting these people, because I see all you guys' Facebook posts, and you meet a lot of awesome people, and a lot of actors that I admire. Do you see a commonality or thread between the successful actors based upon their personality?
Well,
Or is that also just a wide range?
Merrick and I talk about this because I feel that the majority of successful actors, I mean, the ones that you're like, they're really
Sure.
successful. Not the movie stars and the, the one-hit wonders that just got a great role and they made, $1 million. But
So
I
like
mean the really
consistent actors that we all recognize.
That we all recognize.
They're always,
and have
that's
been
that one guy
working-
in that one show.
Yeah, those. They're always just awesome people and always like, oh, that's so great. Tell me about you. And I'm like, you don't want to hear about me. Like, why do you know what I mean?
Okay.
And they're
so
very
they're
caring
open
and
to
they're,
listening and they're communicative.
And they're exactly. And I would say the mass majority of what we would call successful actors are just really cool humans. And I think this is my opinion only, but in my opinion, that's probably one of the keys to their success because people can stand being on set with them day after day after day.
That's a really good point.
And I think that is something that that some people get all me, I got to be famous, and that attitude and energy is not fun to be around. But when you're around somebody that's like, hey, this is an awesome project and we're all working on this together.
Right.
And oh, that's cool. I like that you said that. I didn't think of that. Instead of don't talk to me.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
I think that's a key. But that's again my own theory.
Well, it's an outstanding theory, and I think it's really beneficial to all actors to really listen to that because having been on a lot of these sets and a lot of network sets and a lot of big shows, my focus outside of what I'm there to do, my job, is watching the number one on the call sheet. They set the tone for the set, and a lot of you have heard this before. But I have had the opportunity to see some of these leads on some shows take the diva route, if you will. And some take the more empathetic and very involved. And walking around and talking to all the cast and crew, knowing their first name. And walking up to me, I was just on a recent show, and I can say this. This is a show called Lucifer. And it's just fresh in my mind. But my scene was with the 1 and the 2 on the show, the main characters on the show. And they were the loveliest people ever. And they were just very, very lovely people. And their ability, they were always looking out for me. And they were coming up to me every 5-10 minutes. You okay? You need anything? You good? What do you need? These things. And I just found that so empowering. And you could immediately connect that to their success. And that's why I asked the question, because I will see some that don't quite have that ability to read a room or to just be nice to the other people on set. And it really hurts the whole production. Because I will then all of a sudden, once you notice the number one has some problems, and you don't know what's going on that day. I mean, they've got life problems. It could be anything.
And that's the one thing.
I might have caught them on just a bad day, frankly.
Exactly.
And that's probably what happened. But what you recognize on the entire set is the trickle-down effect. And that's one area where the trickle-down effect is very real. And all of a sudden, the director has a short temper. And so do some of the creatives on that set. And then the crew all of a sudden has short tempers. And then everything can fall apart. I've seen this happen a couple times. And again, it's not because that number one is an asshole. You don't know what's going on that day. But to recognize that a lot of these people get where they get by being compassionate and understanding that when they're on set, they are leading the entire production, whether they know it or not, through their actions, their behaviors, and how they treat other people.
And another thing to remember is not everybody has the same personality. So, people can be kind and easy to work with, but not everybody's going to have that outgoing personality, but they can still give a kind energy and a kind vibe.
Sure.
And we have to all remember and always try to, find the best, like, okay, well, they must be having a bad day.
Yeah.
That sucks.
That's a very good point.
But yeah, I think I found that. Now, I know we're rambling on. We were at an event, and I grabbed Merrick and I was like, look, and it was, and I apologize, I'm terrible with names. The kid that was on E.T. but is a grown up now and was on Haunting of Hill House.
Elliot, right?
Elliot,
yeah.
Yeah. But,
well, if that was his character,
right.
Right.
But anyway, I'll I'll put it right here. I'm so terrible with it. But anyway, everybody was going up to him and, can we get pictures and, sign people were bringing like E.T. It was so fun. It was
cool.
Because it was a Haunting of Hill House event is what it was.
Real quick, I saw him recently on another show. I don't remember what it was, but I hadn't seen him since he was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him and I'm like, oh my God, that's Elliot. And oh my God, is he fucking good.
He's really good.
He's fantastic.
He is. Yeah. He's phenomenal. I don't know if you watch Haunting of Hill House. I'm plugging
no.
Netflix, but yeah. Anyway,
okay. Check him out on it.
It's phenomenal.
Cool.
But anyway, and again, that's kind of probably the first time I've seen him since he was, a kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, phenomenal. Anyway, but personality-wise, you could tell he was just really awkward with the whole fanfare and signing autographs and getting selfies. He was like.
Yeah.
And so I pointed it out to Merrick. I was like, look at this. He's been a star since he was a kid, and he doesn't like this. Like, you can tell this isn't his thing.
Yeah.
Like, he likes acting. He wasn't rude to anybody. He was so pleasant and so wonderful. But he was
kind of going through the motions, though.
You could tell he was just like, he just felt goofy. Like, like some people don't like to get in front of the camera when they're taking selfies.
Which is all perfectly
and stuff.
okay, right?
And that's absolutely
a human reaction.
That's absolutely
a lot
fine.
of people they find it difficult to separate the actor from the person, and that's a good lesson for everybody to go. Oh, he's not just an outgoing guy.
He's not, and he's and Merrick's really a shy person. Like he would much rather be in the corner being quiet, and of course in front of camera that's where he shines and. So it's you have to really think about.
Actors are a complex bunch.
They are.
And I would, not all actors, but a lot of actors that I have gotten to know have a very complicated past from childhood on, and a lot of us, not all of us guys, but a lot of us were broken. We're one of those toys that were broken. And what's that? I remember that cartoon. What is that? The Island of Broken Toys or Misfit Toys?
Yeah.
We're kind of like the Island of Misfit Toys, whereas we just have all of these kind of fallible issues that we've grown up with in one way or another. And me personally, I had some abuse in my life. I've struggled with alcohol, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm recovering now. But a lot of these things added to my personality, of course, obviously. Nature and nurture, they both have their place in how we grow. But these creative outlets and what I do acting is much different than my personality when you meet me. And I'm hit or miss. You catch me on one day and I might be pretty offstandish and want to go isolate myself. And actors, you guys all know that word very well. We're kind of one of the only people on the planet who love to isolate but want to hug at the same time. So there's that going on. And anyway, it just goes back to that kind of that complexity and emotionally in tune a lot of actors are to their creative side, but yet have a personality that you never know what you're going to get. Well, but there's still something to be said, though, either way, that when you are on set, there is a professionalism that has to be understood, and to understand that when you fall apart, others might follow suit.
Yeah. So I think that's important to, to be professional and kind. Even if you're not outgoing, you can still be professional and kind.
That's a great word, kind. I love using that too. Yeah. It's important, so important.
Kindness is a kind thing to do.
I've had a few interviews before, and it wasn't always as reciprocal as this is. I like you're really good at what you do. There you go.
Well, thank you. But you know why? It's because, I've been a professional photographer for over 30 years and I do events. Wow. I mean, I used to do a lot of events. I don't anymore because I physically don't want to anymore. It's a lot of work.
But being behind the camera, you have to interact.
I have to get your personality. I have to make you feel comfortable and give me what you want,
Right.
And so it's, I get that a lot. And I appreciate the compliment, but it's also like, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. You'd think I'd be able to do that.
You better be good at this.
Better be able to do this. But, I feel like, that's, and that's the thing. You should know your strengths and, everybody has strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about relationships here and, that two creatives, having a working relationship. But Merrick's also has an engineering mind, in his past life before he started acting, he was an electrical engineer. So
I saw that just recently, and I was like, "Ooh, I got to talk to Merrick." That's fascinating.
like our life revolves around spreadsheets and budgets. Like you know, most
So he's
actors
got that meticulous
don't.
side
Oh,
to his business,
absolutely.
his craft.
You can ask
So much
him
in
like
common right there.
ask him like, oh, who did you audition for last year? And it's like, well, I was in this office, and like, oh, I talked to so and so, and I think that's so wonderful because I think that's why you also do the same thing. I think that's when you take your craft personally, you know, take charge of it and take responsibility for it and treat it as this is my career.
Right.
This isn't my hobby.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that once years ago. You know, I was a high-end portrait photographer, families, babies, and weddings for years before the whole onset of social media and cell phone pictures.
You're competing with everybody's own headshots.
Back when people used to pay lots of money to have family pictures. Remember when you were a kid? Once a year you got dressed up.
Yeah, with the white T-shirt and the jeans.
Oh, gosh. So that was me. I took those, but you know, but I never made a ton of money, even though I was considered a high-end portrait photographer.
That's the artist life.
And somebody told me though, they said, well, you treat it like a hobby, not a business. Mm-hmm. You love it. And yes, you have to have your passion for what you do.
Yeah.
But if you want to make a living and pay your bills, you have to take it serious. It has to be a business.
You really do. And I think my epiphany came in the first year of acting when I stopped having a plan B. Mm-hmm. Which is a dangerous prospect, but it's also, for me, it was very liberating because I've always been the type that I will set like a plan A, B, C.
Right.
So I'm always safe.
You're always safe.
There's that word again. I have something to fall upon. But what I noticed was happening when I first started acting and setting out a plan B just in case plan A fell apart was that I was always had this in the back of my mind saying, oh, well, there's always plan B.
You didn't ever put all in. You didn't ever.
So I wasn't all in. I didn't put all my chips in. Mm-hmm. Once I got rid of that plan B and said, this is it. I'm doing this. I'm dedicated to this. This is everything. Which is also dangerous. But, you know, for me, it worked. For me, this is what worked. And putting all of my chips in, all of a sudden things started happening for me. Yeah. Doors started opening more. Because I just think that taking the business seriously, mm-hmm. as we've just discussed, it has this effect in the background that it's always working for you. And if you, like I was telling my friend earlier in this discussion, you've already done everything you need to do. All your controllables are in place because you bust your ass every day. She's like me. She's very methodical. She's like mm-hmm. Merrick. She sets everything up. She can tell you exactly where she was, when she did it, what audition, who the casting director is, what her relationship is with that casting director. All of these things are so critical mm-hmm. to build this foundation for something you're taking seriously. Whereas if it is a hobby, how much time do you put into hobbies? How much effort, how much sincerity, deep sincerity are you putting into your hobby? I like to birdwatch. I live on a mountain. And there's still tons of shit I don't know. And I've met a few other birdwatchers up there who I am just blown away by what they do know. But that's because that's all they do. They are bird watching around the clock. And so, but I recognize that that's my hobby and that clearly I'll never be a professional bird watcher. But
that's something. Did you have that on your skills, like that you're a bird watcher on your resume? You should. You should, because you know enough.
Yeah, well, I know a little, very little.
If you need a new manager, you come talk to me after. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hope my manager's not watching.
I was kidding.
Anyway,
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Well, no, I interrupted you, but I was just trying to reiterate your point on how important it is to understand that this is a profession and that you got to put everything into it. Yeah. And then what can come out of putting everything into it. I believe in the 10,000 hours deal. I think it's so valid. Yeah. Was that Malcolm Gladwell? I don't remember. But putting in that extra effort and going through suffering is okay, but how do you deal with it? You know, or what is that old saying? Like, pain is okay, and you're going to experience these shortcomings, but you can choose or not choose to suffer. I believe that was the saying, or I'm close. And so it's kind of, if you line up all your ducks in a row and you're putting everything into your profession and you are experiencing some of that pain, that's part of the process. this is a very painful thing. Any artist will tell you pain is part and parcel to the objectives that you might have as an artist. It's going to come along with it. So understanding how to digest that and deal with it every day.
A few vlogs ago, I said this, and I'm going to say it again because it's perfect for this. This is something that I'm doing in my personal life because there's some things that I was dealing with that I was not liking my attitude around some certain things that were happening. And I was like, I'm the only one. Like, I can't make things not happen to me, but I'm responsible for how I react to, how it happens.
Right.
So I chose to, whenever I see myself getting like frustrated or, even angry, is allowing myself to feel those feelings and say, you know what?
Yeah. I'm
super angry that this happened, and I love that. And when I follow it up with, and I love that, it takes all the power out of the anger.
That's pretty fantastic.
And it's been working. It's just been like several weeks now that I've been, because I've had some health challenges, and I've like been super frustrated because I'm a very active, and so I was kind of, bitter about some things. And it's like, why me, boo-hoo? And then it was like, I'm in a lot of pain today. And I love that I can feel pain. You know?
And that's okay.
And it takes all the power out of that frustration. So it's not going to work for everybody, but you have to find your thing that works for you. That's kind of working for me.
Providing these little tools
Find
and
the tool
ideas
that helps you deal with that, because so many things that, don't let yourself lose your value because you didn't book something, or, all these things that it's so easy to get in that little,
little bubble, your little woe is me bubble.
Yeah.
I recognize something, or I didn't. I've recognized this over the years, but something I like to do, and maybe this is another little tool for something similar to what you're talking about, is I usually find that when I'm angry about something that happened, or I'm lashing out, which I'm apt to do, over anything. If it's somebody cutting me off on the freeway, as is going to happen to every actor and every human being in Los Angeles or New York or major markets, is I will recognize that, I'm mad right now, but it's usually attached to something else that happened earlier.
Right.
And so I have worked very hard at recognizing when that anger starts to build, where it's really coming from. And I've noticed that 9 out of 10 times, it has nothing to do with what I'm currently angry at. If I'm yelling at some guy for cutting me off, it's really going back to stepping in dog shit at 6 a.m. this morning and ruining my shoes. And I've just been holding on to it all day. That's a terrible example. But as an actor, I think it's really important to see when something is really gripping your heart and putting you through hell all day, to take a moment and really, really dissect what is upsetting you. And it usually is connected to something else, and it's not necessarily what you just went through. That happens to me a lot. Mileage differs with everybody, of course.
I personally think that actors feel deeper than a lot of people. And I think because, that's your job. You have to take those emotions and apply it to that script so that I want to watch it on TV and I can feel that through. And so I think that sometimes actors, they feel more, When Merrick and I first met each other, I told him I would never date an actor because you lie for a living. And
that's great. I love it.
The look on his face, he was absolutely devastated that I would say that. And he was like, no, I don't. He
didn't laugh like I just laughed?
No. No, I hurt his feelings.
Oh.
And because he's an actor and he wears his feelings on his sleeve. No. But he was like, no, I don't. I tell the truth for a living. And it was like... It was
smart
like
cookie he is, isn't he?
But it's so true. And so, and what you said is like identifying that feeling. Identify, why am I mad that somebody cut me off? Like I cut somebody off last week. I didn't do it on purpose. It just happened. Like, because if we're honest, we've all cut somebody off and none of us meant to.
Sure.
So, it's not like it's some devious plot that the universe has against you for somebody to cut you off.
Yeah.
So I like that you're like identify, like, you know what, I'm angry, but I bet it's not about this. It's about that. And so I think that's actually a good acting exercise, I would think, is to be able to identify that emotion and categorize it.
Sure. Well, yeah, and you can find a lot of that with just even all the way back to Stanislavski with the, the as if. I'm doing this as if this happened over here.
Yeah.
And so, identifying those emotions, obviously critical, but depending what process you go to, and I'm strictly talking craft right now, is that you can find ways, whether it's Adler and imagination, or you're, looking at Strasberg and a little bit more reality based to something that happened to you earlier. I do think you're onto something with actors having that sensibility that's a little bit more heightened than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. I'm a little wary of going down that path, just because I know some actors that are actually
emotionally shut off.
Right. So I know that side of it too. And I used to try to pigeonhole acting itself and have recognized that we are just as wild and different and strange, and I know actors that are very cut off from everybody and isolate, and that are conservatives, and then I know really far left liberal. I mean, there's just such a wide range of personalities and takes on life.
Yeah.
But I did, I put that into effect just a few days ago because I was angry with my wife about something, and I lashed out, and I knew it once I was doing it. And then we had that discussion about what happened to me earlier. And I had recognized, and the words that I like to say is, what need of mine wasn't met earlier that led to this. And I know we're going down the road of psychology here and everything, but these kind of self-care things are good for any actor or any human being. And so I was recognizing the moment, I was all, and we sat down and I figured out what it was. I didn't have a need that was met earlier that morning, and it had just sat in me all day and built up. And then this little tiny thing that my wife did, I blew up like an idiot. And so I apologized for a few hours.
As every good man should.
And then, anyway, I recognized what that was earlier.
Yeah.
And that's just an important trait, I think, of any actor or person.
Yeah. Well, I think we could probably talk all night. But is there anything else that you want to make sure that we get out? Did we cover it?
Boy, I don't know. We covered a lot.
We covered a lot.
Yeah, that was great.
That was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you coming on. I know
Anytime.
that everybody's going to love this.
Oh, great. Good.
So-
Hope so.
So, do you enjoy people following you on social media? Are you a big social media guy?
I'm cool with it. You can find me Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, Alveraz Ricardez. My name is spelled really goofy. It's Alveraz. Yes, that's not the correct way to spell Alvarez. And yes, it's usually a last name, but it's my first. And you can just find me whatever.
Yeah, I'll put it on the link below too.
Cool.
Yeah, perfect. And I'll put your IMDb page down there so people can check you out and see what all amazing things you've been on.
Yay.
This was really great. And make sure you follow me. And most importantly, have an amazing week. And I'll see you next week. Now, here's a question I want.
Easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
All of this.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, I'm talking a lot of shit here. Half the time, I can't let go of any of this. You can edit that out later.
Oh, no, that was great.
It's probably better to leave it in.
It's
You got to keep up with these kids, these damn kids these days, and their content.
And then there's TikTok. Don't even get me started on TikTok.
I just heard that word a few days ago. What is it?
Don't do it. I am so flippin' addicted to it. It is the coolest app in the world. It started off an app called Musical.ly, and then somebody else bought it. So I'm a Gary V follower, and so he's like, get on TikTok now, because there's no other platform where you can have no followers, post one video, and all of a sudden have 10,000 followers, and that's what's happening right now. Yeah, I mean, I've had 13-year-olds tell me I need braces, and call me Karen, and okay, boomer. And I'm like...
My wife called me that the other day, and I was like, what the hell's boomer? And she told me that it was the baby boomer thing, right?
So my daughter called me that, and I was like, excuse me, millennial. I'm a Generation X.
That's right. Me too. Let's get some of that.
Go Kate Boomer shit.
That boomer shit.
Okay.
Okay.
I have Alveraz Ricardez with us. Did I do it?
You did it.
Yes.
You got it right. I get it all the time. Everybody wants to know how to pronounce my name, so you're not new to it.
Whew.